I do think it might be one of the better tests for Ohio State's defense for the first time this season, but I'm not sure. I'm not really sure that they have enough offensively to keep up with whatever Ohio State's going to do to just about anybody.
Yeah, you gotta give Brian Hartline, the receivers coach at Ohio State, a lot of credit. Like, he has crafted a room where the single best, most productive receiver in the country, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had the best receiving year in the history of the Big Ten in 2021, can essentially be lost for the season. Now, I hope his hamstring is back. It certainly didn't look good the way he pulled up against Iowa early in the second quarter on Saturday. But just the fact that they have essentially seamlessly evolved without him. Now, they certainly miss him. He's the best receiver in the country. He's a top 10 NFL draft pick. He had 347 receiving yards in the Rose Bowl. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a Rose Bowl record. It was a bowl record, and I believe it was the fifth best single game performance. It was against Utah too, a team that has a pass rush and has Clark Phillips and others at corner. Although Phillips might not have played in that game. The just so the fact that they have been able to build that group and build that culture to where essentially you don't get on the field and start if you're not a first rounder is fairly remarkable. And look, Alabama had that for about a 3-year stretch, and that is ended, right? I mean, we can say that with some comfort. They have good players,
Yeah.
and they have players who are going to develop into good players, but they don't have an all SEC wide receiver right now at Alabama, and that shows. That shows in that they lead the nation in drops. It just shows in a little bit of the clunkiness of their offense. When you don't have that type of dynamism, in fact, their All-American receiver last year came from Ohio State, which may be the highest compliment
Yeah.
you could have. So that group, I will say, there's goofy things happen at Penn State at night, right? I think about the.
Yeah, it's a noon game though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It is a big. Yeah. Now, if I'm James Franklin, I would hate that. Like, that place at night is a cauldron, and it'll be great at noon because it's Penn State and it's a whiteout. But boy, that place at night there's some of the great scenes I've ever covered college football in have happened in Penn State at night. The scene will be Ohio State's by far and away biggest test of the year. What is Penn State's run defense? Is it what it was the first 6 weeks of the season, or was it Michigan mauling over them as they did? And I was surprised by that. How do their freshman tailbacks hold up against the, arguably the best defense they're going to see this year? Is Ohio State's defensive line evolved to the point where they can be definitive run stuffers? It's almost for Ohio State a little bit of like the tests you're going to have at the end of the year at Michigan. These are the quizzes, and then we're going to get a check-in to see how you perform against them.
The Penn State-Michigan game, it can be overly influential in evaluating this game, but I came away from that, yes, a little bit cooled on Penn State, but more impressed with Michigan. More so that, you know what, they probably, I wouldn't go in and pick them to beat Ohio State at the end of the season in Columbus, but I did come away from that game and putting 400 yards on the ground on, what had been a really good rush defense and maybe still is for Penn State. I came away from that game more along the lines of thinking, all right, Michigan's not just going to roll over and act as if last year was a one-year aberration in the Ohio State dominance. Ohio State probably will beat them, probably should beat them, but they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to play well. They won't be able to, roll out an average game and beat them. At least, your perceptions evolve as the season goes along. But I came away from that game not so much down on Penn State, other than throwing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at guys allegedly, and more impressed with Michigan. In case you don't know that story, this week during the news conferences and talking to the Michigan players about and Harbaugh about the little dust up in the tunnel. Most of our listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with the big house. The two teams go into one tunnel on one side, and it can lead to some unpleasantries from time to time. And it did at halftime of the Penn State Michigan game. And I guess it was RJ Moten who told a teammate, I just got hit in the face with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I don't know who would throw a good PB&J, but apparently someone did.
I mean, you're giving away halftime protein, right?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.